Hello, my name's Candy Smiley. I'm the president of the Poway Federation of Teachers. And I'm here because I think that some of you may not know what interest-based problem solving is. So if not, I'm here to explain. So when people think about negotiations, I think they usually think about what you see in the picture. We call this traditional bargaining. Traditional bargaining is almost always focused on fiscal negotiations only. And here's how it works. In school districts, if teachers and their union don't get what they want, their first response is for teachers to protest. If negotiations cannot be resolved, after a very legal process and timeline, teachers then have the right to strike. Let me tell you, a strike is lethal to the community. The last thing anybody wants is for the school doors to close. So the district's typical response to a teacher protest is to threaten disciplinary action. So in the early 1990s, you could change the faces of in that picture and you'd see some of your older colleagues like me. I was there holding signs, protesting a school board meeting. Some of us refused to attend back to school night. Some coaches, lots of teachers, they refused to attend after school activities. We called this action work to the contract. So at 3 o'clock, we walked out the door into the parking lot and we left. So at this time, Poway teachers, if they did something like that, were threatened with or received, a letter in your file. I probably still have one. The district's only legal recourse to a teacher strike in traditional bargaining is to impose. To impose means the district has the ability to determine the teacher's salary rather than negotiate. Most often, the teachers end up losing. So in traditional bargaining, it's referred to as win-lose. I think it's more like lose-lose. So in 1996, our then school board took action to engage in a new bargaining process called interest-based problem solving. You'll hear about it, or it's well known as IBPS. So I remember then board member Penny Ranfel just said to the crowd of teachers in the room, "I never want to see teachers protesting here again, ever." This board action required a collective commitment of our then board members, previous Superintendent Bob Reeves, and I am sure this was difficult for Bob, union leadership to participate in formal IBPS training. After a period of time, likely lots and lots of trial and error, our district and union signed a Memorandum of Understanding, we call it an MOU, to negotiate using IBPS. This happened in June 1998. I think this picture tells 1,000 words about traditional bargaining. Individuals or teams, they enter the negotiations from very disparate positions. Traditional bargaining can follow very strict rules of conduct. Sometimes teams are not even allowed to be in the same room together. You can see what might happen if some people in the room don't like each other, or perhaps they have some bad history. Honestly, think about the personalities of the people that you know in the negotiations room. Probably some pretty strong personalities, and likely some bad history. So traditional bargaining has the potential of adding fuel to the fire. Most often in traditional bargaining, each team comes to the table with a position statement. For example, the teachers union wants a 5% salary increase for teachers. That's a statement. The district doesn't want to give a salary increase to all teachers because, rightly so, they have to pay for so many other things. So the district's position on a salary increase is 0%. Both parties likely never talk about those interests they have in common, which would include some of those other things the district has to pay for, in order to problem solve a solution that may potentially meet both of their interests. So in IBPS, those same strong personalities are still at the negotiations room. So IBPS, it requires a lot of training, agreements to behavior, practice, 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 and a facilitator to help you bring you back when you start to feel the urge to reach across the table. I want you to know IBPS is not easy. The process requires a commitment to meet regularly throughout the year. Using data, we follow these budget steps. And notice we use a 3-year, multi-year budget. First, we have an agreed upon formula to determine the percentage amount of new unrestricted dollars allocated to teachers in the Federation's unit. That's the PFT. As a team, we make projections for the following year on both new revenue and expenditures. 3, based on this budget data, we begin our discussion around the allocation of resources towards a total compensation package for teachers. We take into account the available resources and a fair share proportion of those resources to begin a joint recommendation for settlement. Our resources and revenue and our expenditures, they change every single year, sometimes month to month, but we track the percentage amount to teachers every year, so we're able to use this data over time. So our process is pretty sophisticated. It includes a formula to determine the fair share of new resources to our teachers, but it also includes an agreed upon process where we revisit the assumptions we used in the previous year for contract negotiations or settlement. We call this look back process the true up. Once we receive the unaudited actuals, and that's a budget term used to describe what we really spent and what we really received in revenue, to then test our assumptions that we made last year. We ask ourselves, did we make a settlement agreement the previous year, either spending more or less than the formula amount allocated to teachers? This process is very unique to most negotiation processes where parties actually true up their settlement. This process works for all of us because we know we've already jointly agreed to determine if our settlement was too much or too little. That will start the conversation for next year's negotiations. So bargaining or negotiating when there are so few resources and a lot of priorities is very difficult, no matter what process you use. All of us are always frustrated that there's never enough to do all the things we want. Using data and established protocols for shared decision making helps with the frustration and anger over never, ever having enough to do it all. The PFT and our district leadership have used the IBPS process for 17 years. 3 superintendents, 3 union presidents, and many different board members. Our process has worked for us in both good times and bad. Decisions are based on data, not emotions. We have a process in place that creates stability and generates confidence in our school district. IBPS has become so much a part of our culture, we expect the process to withstand any change in leadership. You follow the rules of conduct, you use the data-driven formula, you make the decisions based on the fair share proportion of resources, the percentage allocated to resources, you true up your assumptions in the following year. It totally makes sense. Just so you know, the PFT and PUSD, they also use the IBPS process when making decisions around professional issues. Using the IBPS process, PFT and PUSD created PPAP, for example, a program for our new and veteran teachers now at more than 25 years old. Our TLC PLAB Professional Learning Program, Alternative Evaluation, our Elementary Standards-Based Report Card, K-5 Assessment Team, Teacher Leadership Schedules, and on and on. We have so many professional initiatives around teacher quality. This year, our team agreed to revisit and revise our current teacher evaluation tool. We are focused on a continuum of professional learning and teacher quality rather than a checklist of meets or doesn't meet standards. This is likely to be a 3-year process to ensure that we do it right and we do it well, of course, before it's done to us. So I suggest that IBPS is a smarter way to do business. You take the personalities out of the mix. That's be hard for me. Stay focused on the issue. Use data to make decisions. And note the slide says behave in a trustworthy manner. This is very different than trusting others. It means you behave according to the commitments you made in the room. All of us have witnessed what we call parking lot conversations, where after making commitments during a staff meeting, an individual will walk outside, will behave polar opposite of those commitments in the parking lot. That is not acting trustworthy. So trust may be a byproduct of acting trustworthy. If we make an agreement at IBPS, it may not be exactly what either one of us wanted, but it was the best decision at the time. Therefore, the expectation for all parties in the room is to support that decision. Both parties have to own the decisions made in the room, and both parties are held accountable for those decisions. It's not easy, but it's the right thing to do. So what's the big deal? So I want you to know that IBPS is a really big deal to both the PFT and PUSD leadership. The process ensures teachers have a voice at the table, and that's certainly better than being on the table. IBPS is a data-driven process that has taken us through both good times and bad times will come again. IBPS creates stability and generates confidence in our school district. Teachers can focus on teaching. IBPS requires a commitment by all parties, our superintendent, your union, and our Board of Education. It is not enough to say you believe in the process. It means implementing and supporting those decisions made jointly by our PFT, PUSD interest-based problem-solving team. Thank you so much.